Welcome to Show Me the Mommy, the podcast where we explore the stories of local moms, business owners, and fascinating individuals in Southeast Missouri. We are your hosts, Laura,
Rory, and Kelly.
Join us as we engage in conversations that cover a variety of topics, from parenting to entrepreneurship and everything in between. This is Show Me the Mommy. Let's dive in with our next guest, Chelsea Dillick. She's a realtor and team lead of Think Team Dillick with eXp Realty. She's here today to shine light on the housing market. Hello, Chelsea.
Hey guys, Chelsea. Thanks for being here. We're so excited. I'm sure you have a ton of information to tell us today. But first, tell us about yourself, who you are, and a little bit about your business.
Okay. So, well, first, most importantly, I'm a wife and a mom of two awesome, silly little girls, and I'm team lead of Think Team Dillick in Cape Girardeau with eXp Realty.
Yes. How long have you been in the industry?
This is my 9th year.
Exciting.
Wow. A lot older than I am, actually. I started when I was like 15.
How old are your girls?
5 and 7.
Aw,
Yep.
so sweet times.
Yes, that's like the perfect age. So today, where is the market at for buying?
We're in a really interesting market. So over the last year or so, we've seen such a shift in interest rates. Everybody knows it. Everybody talks about it all the time. So, but for a buyer, technically we are still in a seller's market. So for a buyer, we're still seeing like really short times in the market for listings. So we have to be very on top of it, ready to go. So for a buyer, as long as they're ready to go and have all their ducks in a row, it's fine. But we have some buyers still offering on multiple properties before we get one accepted, depending on their situation. But if we can be pretty competitive, then we get them in something quick still.
Okay. And so you say as a buyer, if they have all their ducks in a row, can you explain what that is? So if someone's listening and they're wanting to buy and they need to get their ducks in a row.
Yeah. So this is where I want to talk a little bit about my profession, how important it is. So when we get a new buyer, whether they've bought or sold in the past, it doesn't matter. We always walk them through this process. It's just not something that you do every day. And so we'll sit down and really talk about what it looks like and what they should expect, because the whole deal is that we want to create as least amount of nerves and,
Amen.
Yeah, as possible. Because let's, be real, this is a big process. And so we want to try to get them prepared. So as far as, the whole process goes, we want to meet with them and talk to them about, getting pre-qualified with a lender, preferably somebody local, and then really set expectations of how many homes that we're going to look at, what the process will look like when we're making an offer, and then after the offer is accepted, what they can expect from there until closing. And so setting those expectations, is everything.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How's the frustration level of everybody you're dealing with right now?
Oh, gosh.
Mine's quite high.
I can imagine. Yeah. Over the last 3 years specifically, probably more frustrated than ever because of, lack of inventory, or something will come on the market and 12 hours later it's under contract. So they're feeling very frustrated. They didn't get a chance. And again, this is why it's really important to work really closely with your realtor, because we'll be looking for you, instead of just relying on, whatever source online they are looking at. So frustration level is really high, especially when we see properties over and over and like either nothing's fitting the bill or they've offered a time or two and still nothing's accepted. So then we go back. But on our team, we really talk about it's the words that we say and the calming, nature of us. If we're really worked up, so are they.
Yeah.
And if we're really frustrated, so are they. So we really have to sit down and say, okay, we know this process. Again, it goes back to setting expectations. So if we say that this could happen, then they're a little more mentally prepared.
Mm-hmm. I started looking almost a year ago, and interest rates were 4% when I started looking. I bought February-ish, March, so 7.5%. Is when it happened.
Ouch.
No, so how are people dealing with that? Because you can only afford something at a certain level at 4% and then 7%, but prices aren't changing either for houses.
That's right.
So what's going on there?
Yeah. So whether it's a month that they've been pre-qualified or whatever, we always have them go back to their lender right before we offer, because it could have changed. Their monthly payment could have changed for the good or the worse. It just depends. But it is definitely difficult. It's kicked a lot of buyers out of the market, and they just said this is not our time. But we still have those who have no choice. They have to make the move, moving for work, or they just really need to upsize or whatever it is. I mean, we're still having people buy and sell. It just looks different. Those people who have a 3% interest rate, it's a lot harder decision for them to make move an upsize when their interest rate is 7% instead of 3%.
So what's going on then? How are we not in a buyer's market with, right? Like what's going on? Break it down.
So in a buyer's market, we would be at 6 months of inventory. That's technically on paper, that's a buyer's market. Right now, we're still less than 2 months of inventory, right at 2 months of inventory. And so definitely still a seller's market. But I believe the reason that we're still in a seller's market is because of the interest rates, because they're still so high. A lot of people are not selling their homes either. They're using them as rentals. If you have a 3% interest rate and you're going to, either way, you're going to move. Mm-hmm. If you have a 3% interest rate and it makes sense, the rental market is also very similar. I mean, really hard to find something to rent right now. A lot of those people are saying, you know what, we'll just keep that house too. We'll rent it out. And
so it's an inventory problem.
It is definitely an inventory problem.
Have we ever seen anything like this before? I can't remember.
Not like
ever
this.
Being like this.
Yeah, we went back to, as a team, I want to say we went back about 5 years ago, and we even went back to 2008. And I mean, the amount of inventory we had then versus now. And I wasn't around in 2008 in this industry, but I remember when I started, 2015 or 16, and we were constantly complaining about inventory.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how lucky we were then, how many homes that we had to show a buyer. But now, completely different story. I mean, it's just very different. So as a team, what kind of separates us from, and what I would say a way that we work really hard is that we're constantly looking for off-market property. I mean, like when we meet with our buyers are seeing things the same time we do, maybe before. They have a Realtor.com app and it dings every time a house is listed. And so we tell them, you're going to see your home before we see your home because you're getting a ding every time something hits the market. Now, we're looking multiple times during the day. So we're spending all of our time looking for off-market properties for our clients to make it less competitive, maybe help somebody out who maybe they didn't know that they wanted to sell, or maybe they're just in a situation that, when we came along and told them how much equity they had in their house, and they were like, yeah, it's time to make a decision. So,
gotcha. So getting creative.
Yes. And we tell all of our clients that up front because it's true. They're going to see a house and we're going to recommend, we go and show it to them. But if we can find something off market and bring it to them beforehand, even if it goes to the market, at least they get in it before. So anything we can do to help.
Is there any way that you can kind of predict how the market is going to go, or like when interest rates will go down, or are they going to keep going up, or is there a point where they cap, or...
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Her analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always tell people I have no crystal ball. So, of course, I don't know what the government's going to do. I don't know what what the market is going to do. So, we're really watching. And I think in this industry, you have to be up on what is happening. You got to know. So, I am a part of a real estate coaching group, and there's agents, the top producing agents across the country. Well, I know what happens on the coast eventually will come here, but not until probably months after. And so being really close with them, I feel like gives us a leg up on what is coming,
Mm-hmm.
And that may be longer days on market for homes, or there's all kinds of stuff, but that gives me a heads up, and then we can adjust prior to it happening here, which is great about our area. Being in the Midwest, that's just how things are. We see it on the coast, and then it comes to us, and even when it hits us, it more dips instead of caves, I guess. So works out.
So if you are a first-time home buyer, so how are they going to navigate the market? What does that look like for those type of people?
First-time home buyers, we love because they're always excited, no matter what they're excited. So they're probably like our most fun clients to work with. And that's where a buyer consultation is so important, to come in and really walk through. And that kind of goes back to having your ducks in a row. And, they've never done this before. So they're just like, find me a house, and what else do we need to do? So when we sit down and talk to me about that, again, setting the expectations of, especially if it's a little harder loan to get, an acceptance on, then those we're really working on. We need to make sure we have as much money down as possible. Anything that we can do to help them, any creative things that we can do. So our team keeps a list of everything we can do to be creative with an offer. And it could be down to simple things, but a whole list. And so every time we get in a, multi-offer situation, then we go back to that list and say, how many of these can we hit? How many of these can we make happen for our client? And we tell them, these are our options. This is what we can do. And sometimes we'll even tell them that up front, like, these are the ways that we can make our offer most competitive. And if they can prepare for that ahead of time, they have a much higher chance of landing the house that they really want the first time instead of our third or fourth offer.
Yeah.
Is there any hope for first-time home buyers right now?
Right now, it's more about their payment, and it's really hard because what they could afford a year or two ago is not what they can afford now.
Right.
And so expectations, again, when they call their lender, they're saying, I can spend X amount of money a month, and they say, this is what price range, and they're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that doesn't afford me near as much as I thought. So, but
And even getting an offer accepted
even
from a first-time home buyer, because I just sold too. So selling was nice. I'll tell you that. Buying's a nightmare, but selling was really nice. And there were so many cash offers. Why would you go with a first time? Like, why would you go with an FHA loan when there's so many restrictions and so many things I have to deal with as a seller?
Yeah.
Versus just, here you go, cash, no inspection, done.
Yeah. So if you're in a multi-offer situation, most of the time they are going to go with cash because it's easier, more secure, more, solid of an offer. But we're still having a lot of government loan offers accepted because maybe there isn't a competitive, maybe we're not in a competitive situation.
So what should they look for then? What is the house to look for if you're a first-time home buyer? How would you know? Because my house, it was competitive. 14 offers in, I don't know, 10 hours or something crazy.
Gosh.
So
That's stressful.
yeah, I mean, great for me, but what does that do? Like, how do you tell those houses apart? Like, because there were so many families that showed up, so many people had FHA loans, so many people were hoping that was their first house and everything. How do you just say, that's not going to be the one for me? How do you know before it hits the market?
So we don't know before it hits the market, but as soon as it hits the market, we know what kind of attention the house is going to get. Because as soon as there's a lot of showings, we know that we're probably going to get a really strong offer.
Okay.
And so I, again, if I'm on the buy side, I'm telling my buyers, hey, there are multiple offers. And I always tell them we're going to submit our highest and best that you feel comfortable with. And if it goes out of your comfort zone, then you did everything you could to make this happen. And if it didn't happen, it wasn't supposed to be yours. And typically, your buyer's always a little bummed when they don't get the house, of course, and especially if we offer a multiple. But by the time that we find their house, they know why it didn't work out because their house was supposed to be their house. And that's what I tell them. You just kind of have faith that at the end of the day, when we land the right one, you're going to know why the others fell apart. And every time I say that, they're always like, okay, thank you.
And that's what was so eye-opening to me, because buying at 7.5, I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like that these houses are still listed at the same price they were when it was 3%. I just couldn't believe it. But then to get 14 offers on mine at 7.5% blew my mind. Blows my mind. And so now I just don't even know I bought my first house in 2011. How do first-time homebuyers even make it these days? Like, I just don't. I think the cards are stacked so against them. So what can they do to mitigate that?
So, of course, saving money and trying to not go the government loan route is what would be the very clear answer. But also, it really has a lot to do with who you're working with. We had a listing that went live at the end of the week last week. And then over the weekend, lots of showings, multiple offers. And looking through the offers was a very clear difference. Even if the offers were the same, what did the agents and their clients do to make theirs stand out? And some of those are really getting creative. And I don't know how into detail I should go, but there's something called an escalation clause that you can do.
That's what I picked.
There you go. And that's
They
the
were
one that
very
won this
creative.
weekend too. They were really creative.
Laura's like, ding, ding, ding.
Not the one I picked.
Absolutely. And not everybody thinks about doing that.
What
but-
is that? What is that?
So an escalation clause is, let's say the house is listed at, $200,000, and my clients offer $200,000, but yet they're willing to go up to $220,000, and with an escalation clause of $2,000, they'll pay $2,000 whatever over the highest offer up to $220,000. So if they get another offer at $210,000, then my clients are paying $212,000.
Got it.
Okay.
So, and it's a good way to be really creative. It's not fully understood here because it's not an extremely common practice. not completely uncommon, but those are things that you should really know about if you're a buyer. And most buyers aren't, this isn't their field, so they don't know that.
Right.
And I hire somebody who really knows how to get the home for you and knows how to be really creative.
So as a buyer, do you feel like right now you have less room to negotiate with a seller?
In most cases, yes, but not every case. And this is where it's really important to know that you can still negotiate in this market. You definitely can. If the house has been on the market still for a little while, I think we've been in this mindset of negotiating.
Define a little while real quick.
Oh.
Because little while, I think 5 years ago is not little while now.
So true. A little while, 5 years ago, would have been like, dang, the house has been on the market for 6 months. We should lowball. But now the house has been on the market for 3 or 4 weeks. Like, yeah, we should negotiate.
Wow.
Different
That's a huge difference.
Totally different. So and that's why we still need to negotiate on behalf of our clients. If the house has been listed for a little while, it's still worth it to negotiate. And still looking up your comps. A couple years ago, it didn't matter what the comp said. It didn't matter because the house was going to sell for what it was listed for, or maybe more than that. So whatever the comp said were what they said. I mean, we should always do our homework, but at the end of the day, when there's multiple offers, your clients just have to do what they have to do.
Yeah. We bought in fall of 2020, so right when everything was
Lucky
kind of
duck. Yeah.
starting to get crazy.
Lucky ducks.
And our house had been on the market for 8, 9, 10 months. And there was still so little room for negotiation. It was crazy. But we fell in love with our house, and we're glad that we ended up buying it. But I was very shocked.
What's the most in demand properties right now? What do they look like? What are they listed at? Like, what's that look like when somebody's going to buy?
Mostly as first-time home buyer, because those are the ones that no matter what the interest rates are, they're going to buy a house. They're just setting their expectations, maybe a little different, but they didn't have crazy expectations before.
Right.
When you've bought a house before and you got a 3% interest rate, you know around what you can buy. Well, you go back to buying, in your mind, you're thinking, okay, I can afford this much more. But then to find out the interest rates are 4% higher, even if you've heard that they're that much higher, it's a different story.
And
absolutely. On paper, it looks much different.
What price point does that tend to look at?
Typically anything from, lower end, it could be anything, even $100,000 or below, up to around $300,000.
Yeah. And so are they, and this is what I just found, personally, the houses that are the most in demand need nothing done to them, right? Completely presented well.
Most
nice.
first-time home buyers are not looking for a project. Typically.
Yeah.
They're wanting something that's done. Plus, I think people are just so busy now. Like, everybody's job is so demanding. They don't really have the time to DIY. They don't really want to either.
Right.
That's not where they want to spend their time. They want to either go out and do fun stuff, or they're working.
But if you can't get into the market, do you recommend finding something that needs, obviously get your inspections and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're going to have a little more trouble is those getting a government loan, because if they need too much work, then they won't pass for a government loan. And so that kind of becomes the whole first-time homebuyer circle.
I found it to be very simple, though. Like the house that I went in way under, it needed floors. And it was bad design choices. That's what it was. So I laid floors and needed paint and stuff that I could hire out easily,
And you looked at it much differently.
Okay.
Some people walk into a home and say, this is what I could make it. And some people walk in and go, I don't want to touch anything.
That's the creative in you, Laura. You could see.
Well, that's why it's a perfect neighborhood, beautiful home, all this stuff, but nobody was buying it. And that's what we realized when those interest rates jumped. People want done. They don't want to do, and those were the most in-demand properties.
Right.
So because I had to look at it very differently. Believe me, I didn't want to.
Because you look at this.
I want to lay floors.
We know. We
did not want to.
wants to do.
You look at this house. You're already going to be paying way more than you want, and then all you see is more projects and more money.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I think a lot of people are willing to do at this point.
Yeah.
So looking at those homes that maybe do need cabinets and stuff like that, they can maybe say, okay, we can maybe go in with a little more negotiation power and
absolutely. Yeah, we're still negotiating, and we still encourage our clients to negotiate.
Yeah.
Again, we were in such a market where you couldn't negotiate. A lot of people's minds, buyer and agent, are still stuck and we can't negotiate, but you can. You just, depending on how competitive that property is, you should still try to negotiate, in my opinion. If there's,
How do you feel about the no inspection? No appraisals.
I will never recommend somebody to not get an inspection. I would never recommend that.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to find in an inspection. So for sure, I'm never going to recommend that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of situations where we'll do as is, where they can buy it as is. They still have the right to do inspections, though. Any inspections or appraisal, whatever they want to do, they just can't back out due to those inspections.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that a lot. That's super common.
That's the one I picked because that was the biggest, and we'll get into the selling. We have another episode with you, but I'm just saying, like, it's easy for me. It's easier for me. So, I mean, I know there's nothing wrong with the house, but you're right. There could be people hiding.
You just never know.
But how do you compete against that?
It's very hard to compete against it. It really is, especially when it's cash as is. And those are going to be nearly impossible to negotiate against. But so in this situation, like over the weekend when we had 4 offers, you would think that one of those 4 offers would be cash. So we're all preparing our clients for the worst of the worst. Like there's 4 offers on the table, or however, if we even know how many offers there are, so just be prepared. If this isn't the one, we will find the one. But none of these were cash. So, and they were all really similar. This was a first-time home buyer home. And so lots of government loans, lots of asking for closing costs to be covered. So the highest offer, it wasn't like this, magical, offer. It was still strong. It was stronger than the rest. So
Right.
Are you seeing very many contingency offers right now?
we still are seeing contingencies. Yep, we have a lot of deals that are contingent on the sale.
Okay.
So we're still figuring out how to get them done. And a lot of times these are off-market homes that we find that we're able to get our clients into, and they'll accept the contingency to sell. Not always, but sometimes. Or if it's something that's been on the market for a little while, or whatever. But yeah, we still have a lot of contingencies.
So do you think that if you're wanting to buy, let's say you find a perfect home, do you think people should still go for it, even if they are going to put in a contingent offer?
Should people even buy, period, right now?
Yeah, so definitely this is in... You guys have probably seen all over Facebook where, what is the meme? It says something about like marry the house, date the rate, or whatever. While I don't...
That's dangerous.
Yeah, me too, 100%.
Thank God.
So I've never shared that. I'll never share it. I just think that's 100% the way to go into buying a house.
Okay, good.
So, but on the other hand, your interest rate may not be forever. So, well, we have hopes that it will go down. There's no guarantee of that. I have no idea what will end up happening. But at the end of the day, if you love the home and you are comfortable with the payment, absolutely you should still buy. There's no reason not to buy. It's still better than renting at the end of the day. You're still building equity. And the way the market, we're still seeing values increase, not decrease. So again, you're gaining equity, especially buying something that does need some work. Yeah, you probably paid more for a fixer-upper now than you would have, 5 years ago. But at the end of the day, you put money into it, and you're still gaining money, and that's what matters. Mm-hmm. So
I think the issue too is a lot of us lived through, 2008, 2009, major housing recessions, and so the problem is, why would I buy when they feel like everything's $50,000-$60,000 overinflated just to lose it all? Like, why, am I not timing the market right? So is there such thing as timing the housing market?
We say this all the time. Don't try to time the market.
Yeah,
it
same as the
typically
stocks,
doesn't work out well for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get in.
Just get in.
Jump in. But be comfortable. Do not.
Yes, don't overextend yourself.
Don't take the rate.
Yes, don't take the rate.
Don't take the rate.
I did that rate for a long time.
Exactly. Like, you better be prepared, because I think when I bought was February something. People were saying, online and YouTube, maybe a year, and they'll go back down. Now they're saying 3, 4. So I was like, man, what if you couldn't afford it for that long?
Yeah, you're in pain.
Okay. So what is the advantage to being a buyer right now?
Well, since values are still increasing, it's still an advantage to buy now. Interest rates are higher, but maybe they'll go back down and you can refinance, but you got a house still, with equity in it. So eventually, no matter what, you're going to get equity in your house. I mean, I don't see us having another 2008. And even those who owned a house in 2008, here we are, 15 years later, it's still worth more than it was in 2008. Mm-hmm. So,
right.
A lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. Any advantage to being in the Midwest buying?
Oh, for sure. Investors are flocking here. They want to buy here because prices are still so much lower than on the coast.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. While our interest rates might not be any different than on a coast, but our prices are for sure. And speaking of investors, those are really hard to work with right now. I mean, especially if they're financing, those with cash, Those with cash are buying everything they can buy because they know with the values continuing to rise and with interest rates, where they are, they're still getting I wouldn't say a deal now, but for them, they can still cash flow. For those who are getting an interest rate, and on a commercial loan, those are going to be higher than a residential loan. So definitely is harder for investors right now. We're not selling like we used to with investors. I mean, 5 years ago, I would have seen something even in the MLS and called my client and said, hey, I mean, we still do this. It's just not as common. But I would very regularly close with a lot of investors who we could just find something on the MLS that cash flowed, we'd offer, and they had their new property.
That's so interesting because the investors that offered on mine, they were all cash. So they were the most attractive offers.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how
But
they're still getting those
difficult
properties.
for you?
Easier for cash.
Okay.
Definitely easier for cash, but more difficult for those who are getting loan.
Because that's what I feel like is the biggest difference from when I bought way back in 2011. There were no investors bidding on properties.
very
no. And then now you could have 5 or 6. And it's just, how do you compete against that when you're a first-time home buyer?
Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah.
A lot of things stacked up against first-time home buyers right now.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they're still going to buy. They're still going to buy because if they don't own a home, they want to own a home. It's still the right thing to do is to buy something as long as they stay within what they feel comfortable with.
Do you think everything's settling a little bit?
It is, definitely.
Yeah. So
for
more
sure.
hope on the horizon.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. Even we've seen in the last 6 months, it's a lot easier to get our first-time home buyers into a home than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot better.
I think so. I feel like it's settling a little bit more. There was so much when the interest rates first jumped and there was tons of uncertainty and everybody kind of gridlocked. And now it feels a little bit more
It does.
kind of coming down.
It does.
Having I call it a come to Jesus meeting.
Yeah.
That's what the housing market's having.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's wild. Yeah.
So, what piece of advice would you give a first-time home buyer that hasn't even reached out to a realtor yet?
Reach out to a realtor.
Well, why should they?
So the reason they need to is because we'll make sure that they don't fall in the pitfalls of all the very, very easy things. We talk to people constantly who are like, well, I've just been trying to work on my own. I've just been looking online, I'm looking for a house. I see one, I go offer on it. But if you're not prepared, you're just going to be put in, just over and over and over exhausted of all the work that you're doing. Let us do the work. Let us prepare you so you don't go offer on 5 homes and not get any of them.
I will say, when we went to buy our house, it was so nice to have somebody that really went to bat for you and somebody to be on your side and somebody to be rooting for you.
Definitely. And we have access to things that are not on the market. So that's another reason that you want us on your side is because you'll be working with somebody who's always working. And whenever I meet with somebody, I tell them, I am working for you until you tell me to stop. So you may not hear from me every single day, but you will hear from me often. And if you don't hear from me within, a couple days, I'm still working every day. Every day. I'm looking, I'm working until we find the one. And if your plans change, you need to let me know because I'm going to keep working. So
I heard some younger kids, but I say younger, I mean like 20s. But they were saying like, they were struggling to buy a house and and they said you have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And I thought, well, that's not true. I just have to know a realtor. Yes. Because I feel like she knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. Yeah. Right. So a little bit of disconnect in how thinking was there.
Too. Yeah, definitely. Speaking of age, every time I meet with, first-time home buyer, I'm like, okay, so we're going to get you set up with a local lender. We've got a few that we work with and would recommend. They're so great. They're around our age, and oh, just kidding, because you're 20. Yeah.
It's crazy.
We're still the same age.
We're still 20.
We are.
No, my brides are getting younger and younger. I'm a wedding photographer. My brides I'm like, oh, no. I'm just...
I don't feel...
It's
how
a different
old I am.
world. Yeah, I guess. I feel all of the ages I am, and then some.
Grandma Laura.
Yeah, and then I hear their age, and I'm like, whoops. Okay, never mind. Yep. We're on the out. So yeah, it's been incredibly, informative. So many people are going to get so much value out of it. Where can people find you at?
Just Google us. Think Team Dillick.
Perfect.
Awesome.
And then
Easy
Show
enough.
Me the Mommy. You can find us at TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. What's our
Facebook at Show Me the Mommy Podcast.
Wow.
It's SMTM podcast.com.
Well, if you can find us through all that, good luck. But yeah, follow us. The more followers and stuff we get, the better content we can produce. So
Absolutely.
we appreciate you so much, Chelsea.
Thank you guys for having me.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode from Show Me the Mommy podcast. Go ahead and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Show Me the Mommy podcast. You can keep up to date with every episode we release and new guests that are coming our way. See you guys soon.